haven't put yours
pertain
on
to the
here.
original spot. This was pertaining to A or B.
All right. We're going to go in order this time with the meeting minutes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the 12th of November meeting?
Just the minutes?
Yeah, I'm sorry,
Just the minutes?
just the minutes.
I'd make a motion to approve the minutes.
Well, second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed, thank you. Meeting minutes are approved. Moving on to new business, the election of a chair for the Board of Adjustment. Do you have a nomination?
Which are we doing? The
I
chair?
would
Chair. Yeah.
nominate Brad as chair.
Brad Silman's been nominated. Any other nominations? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None heard? New chair. Election of the vice chair. Do we have a nomination for election of vice chair?
Nominate Paul Stucker.
Paul Sucker's been nominated. Any others? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So, staff, we're moving into the vertical bridge discussion on the variance request. Would you like to proceed?
All right. Procedurally speaking, I've covered a lot of facts, and I will do my best to be concise and not too long-winded, because this is its own type of request. So just close your eyes while I zoom. There we go. All right, vertical bridge variance. This variance is a request for relief from the Cook County Tower Ordinance, Section 6.01D1, to place a wireless telecommunication tower facility, support structure, and security fencing on parcel 20-230-3300 within 1,000 feet of two neighboring residential structures. The property is 58.61 acres, entirely within the FAR1 zone district, and zone shoreland within the North Shore Management Zone. The variance request is requesting relief from 835-foot setback to the residential structure to the south and 572 feet from the compound perimeter to a newly constructed residential structure to the northeast. The original conditional use permit was approved by the Cook County Board of Commissioners on December 3rd, 2024. This variance request is submitted in conjunction with an amendment to that conditional use permit, which proposes a relocation of the previously approved tower site within the same subject parcel. The original conditional use permit was approved by the Cook County Board of Commissioners with the authorized construction as a 195-foot self-supporting lattice tower with a 4-foot lightning rod. And parcel is privately owned by Richard and Lori Evans of Next 2 Caribou LLC with a 50-year lease agreement in place with Vertical Bridge. As explained in the application, as part of the approval, the Cook County Board of Commissioners included 4 conditions of approval, which includes the driveway access complies with State Wetland Conservation Act and secures necessary grade fill permits through Cook County Estate SWIP should the total soil disturbance exceed 1 acre. While discussing the site with Mitch Travis, the Cook County Wetlands Specialist, it was discovered that proposed access for the tower site crosses through wetland areas and the lease compound is situated within one as well. The requested conditional use permit amendment and this variance were initiated due to the presence of wetlands on the property and the requirement of the Wetland Conservation Act, which directs applicants to avoid and minimize wetland impacts where feasible. This new proposed location avoids direct wetland impacts and represents the least amount of wetland impacts feasible alternative on the site. However, the relocation results in the tower being situated within 1,000 feet of 2 residential structures, thereby triggering the need for the setback relief. On the screen there, I have the new proposed tower location with a yellow line drawing between that tower location to yellow triangles, kind of identifying each of the adjacent property owners' residential structures that will be discussed further in this request. And the red circle is the 1,000-foot radius where that's where the tower ordinance stipulates the prescribed setback relief needed. The reason for the variance and conditional use permit is the wetlands, as I just identified. So again, that purple and the green, this is from the wetland delineation that was completed last year. And that's that. So for background, the project site is not located within a designated wireless telecommunication district, and as we previously discussed, the original CUP required a review with the tower facilities request policy, and as part of that review, the Planning Commission and Board of Commissioners determined that the proposal met priority number 1, public safety, as outlined in Appendix B of the Cook County Tower Ordinance, by improving wireless service coverage along the Highway 61 corridor. The ordinance citation relative to this variance request comes from the Tower Ordinance. This sets the standards for new tower construction. It states that wireless telecommunication tower facilities, including all support structures, security fencing, shall not be located within 1,000 feet of any residence other than the residence on the parcel in which the tower is located. A lesser setback shall be allowed to a neighboring residence provided the owners of all residential dwellings located less than 1,000 feet from the telecommunication tower facility sign a release allowing the facility to be located at a setback of less than 1,000 feet, but any resulting setback shall not be less than 500 feet. So just to clarify that this tower is meeting that very minimum of 500 feet that's outlined, but that's where that variance relief is needed because there is not a signed letter from the adjacent property owners allowing that setback relief. This is highlights I did, but the site plan from the application, again showing the processing was a little strange as we originally received the tower amendment last summer was when we also realized there had been a land use permit for the Kamak Properties residential structure. It had not been built yet when we first received this application for the CUP amendment. It initially was just from the McKeever property. And so that's part of why we had those delays that I earlier referenced, that this got noticed and then delayed because we realized that there was a new structure being built and then it reached a status of being substantially built to just enough of the effect to require setbacks. So this was a little bit of a two properties being developed at the same time with relational setbacks. So we've been managing this as best we can to be fair to all parties involved. Again, the photo simulations, these are the exact same slides you had at the CUP amendment public hearing, but just for refresher, these are from the applications again. For site conditions and land ownership, again, the property is zoned FAR1, single-family residential along that Highway 61 corridor. This is the same set of information that was in the CUP amendment. Relationally speaking, most of the land on the Lake County side is public. Some of the private lands along Highway 61 there. And then within Cook County, it's mostly private land. And there's some homesteaded parcels and a lot of non-homesteaded parcels. And we talked about the fall zone requirements, and I'm hoping that everybody is okay with us adopting a lot of that similar discussion we just had, so I do not need to repeat it verbatim. But this is the same set of information primarily. Again, the height of the tower is 199 feet. The tower is identified being 163.8 feet to the nearest property line, which is the Kamak property to the north. The application does include the fall zone letter signed by a professional engineer, which states that the tower is designed to fall within the radius of 155 feet, which is in the property boundaries of the subject parcel. And again, in your packet is a letter from the Cook County MIS department with some more technical communication about what that tower letter means. And again, for the wetlands, so we talked about this a bit at the CUP amendment hearing. So this, this option B drawing was put out by Mitch Travis more as a very high level concept discussion as to where else on the property could this tower go. So strictly from a wetland permitting perspective, option B would be suitable if there were no other approvals to allow it to be built in this location. But as was probably pointed out, the CUP amendment, if the variance is denied for this location that's avoiding wetland impacts, then the original CUP location could also be considered unsuitable and would meet sequencing. Let's see, what else you would like me to cover? Details about the residential structures. So, as explained in the application, the proposed location of the tower is approximately 573 feet from a proposed structure located to the Kamak property and 831 feet to the nearest residential structure on the McKeever property to the south. This structure on your screen is from the Cook County Assessor's photos of the McKeever property. This parcel is a 5-acre parcel, non-homesteaded, zone single-family residential. The assessor's records indicate that this residential structure is a manufactured home built in 1989. The Kamak property, located 572 feet from the compound perimeter to the northeast. 178-acre parcel where this structure is located is also non-homesteaded, zoned FAR1. This structure was permitted to be built with an approved land use permit on July 3rd, 2025. The land use permit currently identifies the structure as a house with deck to be served by a porta potty and no pressurized water. Assessor records indicate there is a start of a timber frame cabin, roof over post, 10 by 16, built in 2025. Concurrently, while reviewing the land use permit for the Kamak property, Land Services received the first version of the CUP amendment application and variance from the McKeever residential structure. Staff have worked with the applicants since then to complete the wetlands delineation and update the application to include the setback from the Kamak residential structure. The Kamak structure shown on the screen was not built nor permitted during the original CUP application process. For public noticing, this version of the application was legally noticed in the Cook County News Herald on January 16th, 2026. 21 letters of notification were sent to adjacent property owners on December 23rd, 2025, as well as county departments in Schroeder Township. 5 written comments were received from adjoining property owners and the U.S. Forest Service during written comment period. Kenneth McKeever, concerned with decreased property values and other concerns. Doug Kamak, opposed to the location noticed in the variance and CUP amendment. Tricia Sackett, opposed to the request, feels the tower will detract from the natural beauty of the landscape and is outside the communication district. Concerned about lighting at night, opposed to deviations from tower ordinance, wants the tower located further inland or elsewhere. If permitted, a strict adherence to lighting and material restrictions. Paul and Patricia Reniason, opposed to the request, expressed concerns related to health and safety and property value decrease. Robert Burrow, opposed to the request due to visibility property values. And U.S. Forest Service, the standard abutting federal property, remind property owners to stay within the private property boundaries and not to encroach or trespass on federal lands. The findings, again, so this is a variance request. So the findings and fact that the Board of Adjustment is reviewing is completely distinct from the CUP amendment considerations that were just discussed. So the draft version of facts and findings for the board to at least begin talking about and amend through your public hearing and discussions are as follows. First, it's citing the tower ordinance with a potential finding saying that the tower is requesting a setback relief of 835 feet from the tower to a residential structure to the south and 572 feet to the compound perimeter to a newly constructed residential structure to the northeast. Neither residential structure is homesteaded. The tower is maintaining the minimum required setback of 500 feet. There is some land use guide plan goals about protection of non-compatible uses from one another and redevelopment of lands. There is a Cook County natural features and environmental concerns goal to maintain and enhance the quality of natural resources and native ecosystems within the county, with a policy that states evaluate and minimize adverse impacts on air quality, surface and groundwaters, wildlife habitat, ecological systems, and other natural features through land use decisions. And then the administrative and intergovernmental goal to integrate land use concerns into all appropriate ongoing administrative actions, with a policy that states land use related decisions shall recognize the need to duly consider rights and responsibilities of the greater public good, general public good, with the corresponding rights and responsibilities of the individual. The proposed use of the property is allowed in the land use district where the property is located. The parcel is contained entirely within the FAR1 zone district. The proposed use was approved through an original conditional use permit review 2024-8 CUP with findings and conditions. The property owner is proposing the use in a reasonable manner not permitted by the Cook County zoning ordinance. The property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner consistent with the Cook County Tower Ordinance through existing conditional use permit 2024-8 CUP. Additionally, the identified need to address the telecommunications gap along Highway 61 as cited for the first responders, thereby creating a public safety telecommunications benefit. The property owner has established that the practical difficulty involved is due to circumstances unique to the property and not created by the property owner. The applicant obtained a wetlands delineation that has been reviewed and approved and collaborated with the Wetland Technical Evaluation Panel to assess alternative sites per the WACA memo dated 1/21/26 by WACA LGU Mitch Travis. This variance request results from existing wetlands on the parcel and efforts to comply with the Wetland Conservation Act and recent development on the neighboring property. Wetland sequencing requirements as outlined in the Wetland Conservation Act require projects to first try to avoid and minimize wetland impacts where possible. Approving the variance maintain the essential character of the locality. The application includes photo simulations of the tower as viewed from Highway 61. The tower will be visible from Highway 61, but mature tree forest in the area will minimize the visibility. Other towers are located along Highway 61. And the property owner's established practical difficulty involves more than economic considerations alone. Economic considerations are not the sole reason for the variance request. Obviously, purchase of wetland credits is an economic consideration. Staff recommendation for consideration. Staff recommend the Board of Adjustment hold a public hearing and consider all the facts relative to this request. The crossing of the wetland would be a substantial amount of wetland impacts, which are generally avoided if possible. If approved, the following conditions may be attached to this variance request. Number 1, the tower shall be placed in accordance with the application materials provided in the February 11th, 2026 Board of Adjustment packet. And number 2, all wetland impacts must be reviewed and approved by the WACA LGU before construction. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for that. Open, the applicant like to?
Yeah, could you put up slide 48, please? I wanted to address one of the items.
I can't read the numbers, so
You were back, keep going further. No, other way, I'm sorry.
towards the findings?
Yeah,
Okay.
that one. Okay, one of the items that was addressed, and we addressed with the TEP, the wetland sequencing requirements as outlined in the Wetland Conservation Act require projects to try first to avoid and minimize wetland impacts where possible. Keeping the tower in the original location does none of that. And that was something that was discussed with the TEP, that the alternative locations that we showed on option B and option A that had the two sites closer to the front were the attempts to mitigate that concern. If we were just to stay in that existing location that was approved in 2024, that's not meeting that requirement at all. And so that's where we have a hardship in that, yes, there is the financial aspect of purchasing the sequencing, but that's not the real reason. It's we're staying in that wetland area by not moving the tower. And we were given suggestions on a couple different locations where we would meet that, option B and option A with the two fingers, were the options that we were presented with and explored. So it's not a financial discussion. It's about the sequencing and not trying to first avoid the wetlands. We are smack dab in the middle of the wetlands, and without moving the tower, we're not trying to move or to avoid the mitigation.
Yeah, I understand. This is one where it's I'll take a note on that myself. I didn't want to skip over going to starting a conversation with you and I and not going to public comment before we do that. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, I mean, we've talked about all the other points in the Plan Commission, but, same things hold. I'd be happy to answer questions.
Does the board have any questions?
Do we have to open up to the public first?
I'm sorry? With the applicant.
Oh.
No. Okay. We'll open it to public comment. I'd ask that everyone, when they go to make a comment, that there's no need to repeat what you told us in the previous meeting.
Do you want to go? All right. I'll try not to repeat, but it's been a while now, so I hope you didn't forget all the things that I said before. Doug Kmock, 9437 Highway 61, home is in St. Paul. Couple things. I want to clear up the whole recently constructed. This was a timber frame. We did the timber framing class at North House August of 24. And so it means I signed up for that class about 2 years ago. did the timber frame, sat right over there and said we were gonna have a structure. Somebody saw it, so that started a long conversation with the county of what we were gonna do and what we needed a permit for and what we did not. So, to say it's been a recent construction, to me, I've been constructing this for a year and a half now. And it just recently became erected, set it up, and we had a bunch of people up there. And so I went through the whole process to get my land use permit. And it was a lot of conversation of what we're gonna have there, and so what kind of, how do we classify that? So I just wanted to clear that up. A couple problems with the practical difficulties. First, that it's not there, not due to the owner. And I'll remind you, that's not the owner. That's a leaseholder. The owner never signed the application. So I don't know if that creates a legal problem or not. But to me, they have to abide by all the rules then, because any problems were created earlier. But they clearly chose a site. They picked the site, and it was within that permitted area. And then the only other thing is obviously the economic considerations, and he talked about the cost there. And the shorter driveway, less wetland mitigations, to me, it's clearly a cheaper option, and they're looking for a cheaper way, and then that infringes on me. And I talked about the adverse effect. If it goes there, if it violates, or if it gets a variance, I will probably never build my retirement home there. And I don't know if but it will change what I do. I will never retire there. I will have a little cabin there, but I don't want to be in the shadow of a cell tower there. And as you saw in the picture, that forest there is that decadent birch forest, and it's very visible from that area. So there's lots of birch that are down, and it's open and turning to grassland. So 1/10 of a mile seems like a long way to him. It's very visible to me. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Board of Adjustment, thank you for being patient with us tonight, and I appreciate your interest. And those of you that are watching live or will see this in archive, it's important to have all the data. Mr. Chairman, may I readdress my remarks from the previous planning meeting, or refer the viewers to that?
I would refer the viewers to that. Part of it is just in the interest of everybody's time.
Okay,
Listen
viewers,
carefully to your points.
you referred to my points 1 and 2 in the Planning Commission meeting earlier, before this meeting, in the archives. I am Paul Renaison of 9380 West Highway 61, and I had 3 main points, and you've been referred for points 1 and 2. Those were loss of county property tax revenue, and number 2, increased wildfire risk. You can go to the planning meeting for those. The third point was the towers, as proposed, is obsolete. T-Mobile is now using 650 satellites and Starlink to fill the gaps outlined in the tower proposal. And that's important. There's a map in that tower proposal that shows the gaps, and they are filled by T-satellite. The county public safety priority number 1 use by the county board, which spent 1 hour on this issue, debate and discussion, before it referred back to this body. That county board of Cook County put priority number 1 use requirements are met without the tower by T-satellite. So the public safety gaps of Highway 61 are solved without the tower. And I want to be clear on that. And that's important. I'll quote T-Mobile one more time for the record. Staying connected matters, even in the most remote areas. With a constellation of 650 satellites, T-Satellite with Starlink helps keep T-Life and other popular apps working where traditional towers can't reach. T-Satellite is now offered on even my simple cell phone for $10 a month. This gap-filling technology solves the county board's communications concerns and is in use today. And I'm going to read, just to clarify, since I didn't have a rebuttal opportunity in the previous meeting. T-Satellite, part of the T-Mobile and SpaceX partnership, T-Sat plus Starlink, provides direct-to-cell servicing by utilizing specialized downward-facing netter and antennas on low Earth orbit satellites. Unlike conventional angled dishes, these satellites connect directly to mobile phones, often appearing as T-Mobile SpaceX or T-Sat plus Starlight on user devices. Technology uses phased array technology, allowing the satellites to steer beams toward the Earth's surface, rather than needing a side-looking fixed orientation. Service capability, designed for emergency messaging and direct-to-phone voice data using a straight-down view to cover areas without ground infrastructure. Performance, these satellites can be seen in photos as straight white lines because they are navigating across the sky while maintaining a downward scanning beam. For users, this means the system functions with standard mobile devices requiring no physical adjustments, unlike the self-aligning consumer Starlink dishes, which often orient toward the sky. In closing, I want to again state that the county and the recommendation of the Board of Adjustment should be to withdraw approval of the proposed tower and the proposed variance, obviously, as obsolete and a wildfire danger and will cost the county property tax revenue. And T-Mobile and T-Satellite have solved the problem. I think we need to move forward. Thank you for your time.
Any other public comment? Okay, thank you. Please state your name and address.
Yes, my name is Richard Furlong. My address is 2390 County Road 7, but I'm actually here to speak on on behalf of Mr. Doug Kamak as his attorney. I think that the Board of Adjustment really in this variance request is being asked to answer one simple question. Is there a practical difficulty on this lot that prevents the tower company from building the tower where they'd like to do it? Simply, I think the answer is no. We're not looking at a 100-foot wide by 150-foot deep piece of shoreland where there is too much setback on every side to build a lot or to build a home. That is an obvious practical difficulty that the property owner did not create. In this case, the tower company has selected a location within 200 feet of the property line with a more than 200-foot tower and chosen to place it within 600 feet of my client's home and less than 1,000 feet of another neighboring property. The tower ordinance already allows for one or both of those neighbors to permit that tower to be within 1,000 feet. One of them has said they would do so. They've asked, of course, as I think a sensible person would, for compensation for that agreement. As far as I'm aware, no compensation has been offered, making that clearly a financial decision. I believe there are locations on that map that have just as much, maybe slightly more impact on wetlands that would be more than 1,000 feet from my client's property and within the 1,000 feet of the McKeever property, who has already said that he would sign that, what is basically a private variance request, if he were compensated for it, which I think is appropriate. This fall tower letter and the follow-up letter from, I don't know if it was MIS or MSI, I think is also something that should be considered. The tower ordinance requires an engineering report, not an engineering letter written by an engineer hired by the company. I write letters on behalf of my clients all the time. I can tell you that those letters are very one-sided and favor the client that they're written for. And I think the same is probably true here. There isn't an engineering report that I've seen that definitively states that this tower, which is 199 feet, will crumple down to 155 and then fall with the 168 feet, 163.8 feet. They're leaving themselves less than 10 feet of fall room from their tower to my client's property line. If that tower fails to crumple as they think it might, not as they've proved it will, it's going to fall onto my client's property by at least 30 plus feet. Yes, he has decided to build a house close to his property line. It's his decision to do so. The county has approved him to do so. But in this case, no matter where they put this tower on this property, after my communications with Mitch Travis, a wetland delineation and sequencing is going to be required. They're going to have to purchase wetland credits no matter where they put this thing. They are choosing instead to put it in a location where they need this variance. The wetlands exist everywhere. They're going to need the wetland credits. The question is how many? Again, leading us back to this idea of this being a financial decision and not a result of this practical difficulties they're coming up with. Board Member Lee mentioned, I thought it was an astronomical number, of $35,000 an acre for your wetland credits to build a driveway. Again, economic. It's a lot of money, but it is possible. They could absolutely build where the CUP already says they can. We already established that definitively. They could build it there. There's nothing that prevents them from doing so. They're using the WACA language, in my opinion, to get around this and to put the burden instead of on their pocketbook on the neighboring landowners. I think that there is, perhaps it's something in the ordinance that I missed, but it talks about residences, not homestead residences. There are many members of this community that own properties all over the county that are not homesteaded because they own multiple different properties, whether it be at Gunflint Lake or at Greenwood Lake or wherever else it might be. Those properties aren't homesteaded. Are those community members and their second cabins any less valuable than anyone else that has their property homesteaded? I hope not. But at the end of the day, this thing certainly seems to me to be an economic decision. There were, when they went from the original CUP to the CUP amendment, there were many instances throughout their report where they just failed to correct or to update the documents. They did not provide any pictures from the north of where this tower was going to be, right by where the Superior Hiking Trail crosses. There were many corners, as far as I can tell, that were cut in producing this request, and all of them point back to economic decisions and accountability there. So I think that on Mr. Kamak's behalf, I'd ask that you deny the variance and the tower company can continue with the permit that they already have. Thank you.
Any additional comments from the public?
I'd like to respond if you'd like.
Yeah. Okay, closing comments from the public. Sir, would you like to respond? Go ahead.
Okay. So I think mostly I would like to respond to Mr. Furlong's assertions. As I mentioned at the start, you know, the sequencing, it's not about the financial. It's about the fact that the tower is smack dab in the middle of a wetlands area. And we were required to look at alternative locations as a potential to mitigate. And that is exactly what we did. It wasn't just, well, it's going to cost X, Y, and Z, so yeah, we're going to go there. You know, so that's very important, that it's not an economic issue. It's about the fact that there's wetlands there and the tower is not situated in a good location. Now, as far, he had mentioned also that the tower is over 200 feet. That is not correct. It's 195 foot with a 4-foot lightning rod. And the significance of that is anything over 200 feet or in very close proximity to an airport must be lit. So by staying at the 199 feet, this tower will not be lit. So it will also, you know, blend into the area. Now, as far as Mr. McKeever, yes, I did have conversations with him, and that was before we knew about the Kamak property. I was working with him, but he wasn't realistic in what he was asking. We did offer him a certain amount, and he went exponentially higher. That was not rational to solve a problem. I did contact Ms. Maxwell at that point, and I said, you know, I do have concerns about the way your ordinance is worded, and I mentioned this in the Plan Commission, that it gives the property owners an unrealistic level of authority to get a site denied based on this signing of the letter. That really puts them in almost a quasi-judicial position. They're almost equal in footing to the county board in that they're the ones that ultimately will decide whether to approve or deny the conditional use permit. And by having them provide the letter, it put Mr. McKeever in the catbird seat to ask for an astronomical amount of money that was unrealistic. So I did not speak to Mr. Kamak at that point because I had notified him, or I believe he had emailed me when we were filing the application, and I had sent him a response. He did not ask for, hey, we'll sign off on this or anything like that. So we did not discuss it at that point. And Mr. Furlong also, he says that the engineering report is not, something you guys should believe, but the fact of the matter is, I supplemented in the addendum with the actual tower drawings and the structural analysis that was done. It's not something that was just some junior engineer sitting at his desk writing a letter, like not trying to berate an attorney, but sometimes attorneys will write a letter to someone to cease and desist something on behalf of someone to show that they've got authority. That's not the case. This was a signed, certified letter by a registered licensed engineer in the state of Minnesota based on the tower drawings. So it's not something that was just thrown out there as...
You've seen, we have the entire engineering design document.
Yes. And again, it gets back into the throwing the burden onto the residents. I don't believe there's been any proof that there is an economic burden on them. They haven't proven that there's any economic property loss. It's one of those that it's a perceived, it's not a factual statement. And as far as the photos from the hiking trail, that was discussed during the original. We did not take, we tried to do one set from behind the hiking trail down to the original location, but it really didn't show anything. So I did additional research after the Plan Commission meeting, and we looked at alternative locations potentially up there. That was something that the Plan Commission and the county board had asked us to do. So we've done all our homework that was requested of us. So I just wanted to point those things out. And again, Mr. Renaisson's statements about the TSAT and all that kind of issues, the wildlife danger, I don't believe that fire danger is a major issue. And it's one of those that, of course, you could potentially have a fire somewhere. You can't prevent everything, but towers don't typically just ignite. That's not common. I believe that's pretty much the rebuttal to the comments. I want to go back to and say, the sequencing is what it is, and I believe relocating the tower is a part of that sequencing. It's something that we were suggested that we need to do. So.
Any board members got questions? Or the applicant? No, thank you. Okay, closing the public comment. Discussion amongst the board. So a couple of things that one of the things that when we got on this board, we get to do is look at things that people want to do with their properties. And each of us has property rights. We don't have property rights to other people's properties. But we've gone through and created ordinances where we get agreements about how we're going to operate together as neighbors. And that's how we've come up with all these things that we have. And so we have to look at the things when people are required to color outside the lines. Now, wetlands clearly drove a lot of the change in decisions and why the conditional use permit came back and this variance came back. And, I look at the map, and this is the 100% solution, okay, of we've got the little mark down on the road, or across the trail hour it crosses over, and then you stop at the wetlands that are there. Then the option B that came in was the extreme opposite. We go all the way around the property up and get over the top of the wetlands. That's not a viable option either, because you're cutting through wetlands all over the place. And it doesn't come across as a mitigation. We have to deal with what's in front of us and the options that are put in front of us. I think that, somebody like Mr. Lee would look at that and go, well, you could do this, this, and this, and you'd have minimized, and you'd get your tower in, and you wouldn't be running into those things, but we don't get to examine those, because that's not the case in front of us. So the ordinance says 1,000 feet, and it gives variance to 500 feet no less. So that's the ordinance, or the legal language that we look at. With regard to the T-satellite communication systems that's been brought up, since I'm kind of an IT security guy by trade, Verizon has less than 10 satellites up. AT&T has none, according to T-Mobile site. This board has no authority to tell people what system to use. Okay? I can't go to any emergency service provider and tell them to use something else. And I thought about the comment made back in the previous board about using pagers. After the Hall fire, there was different towers put up there for emergency services. And that's what they're using. They're not using cell service. Those towers don't exist down on the west end. They were never put in. So I'm looking at the request here, and in public comment, it's one of those things where people like what they see, but it's somebody else's land, it's not yours. And that's how we have to look at what does the law say we can do and what we're permitted to do. And understand that that's the construct under which we operate. All right? Those made general comments. I do agree. We did look at the Superior Trail conversation back in '24. Comments from the board? Discussions, questions?
I have a question. So you don't actually own this property?
No, we're
The company's
leasing.
trying to lease it from the owners?
We already have a lease agreement in place.
Okay, and did you guys do research on that beforehand, or what made you guys pick that property versus the one over, the one above it? or-
Okay, so I can explain that. It's going to be a little history lesson.
No, I just didn't know if there was a quick.
Yeah, so what happens is we're a consulting firm, and we are hired by Vertical Bridge, who was hired previously by T-Mobile to find a location. And what they provide us with is what's called a search ring. It's usually a half-a-mile radius, plus or minus. It gives us specific coordinates for the center of the search ring. It tells us what the height we're looking for. And then what we do is we do a zoning analysis initially, and we did that. We then, once we've done the zoning analysis of what the county will and will not allow, we send out letters to all the property owners within that search ring that are zonable, because there might be some residential lots that are too small to meet any requirements and whatnot. And so we sent out letters asking people if they'd be interested. And in this case, we had 2 potential candidates that were interested. I can't think of the gentleman's name. He was further back off the beaten path a little bit, and he didn't have any of the power and the fiber and the utilities that we needed. Plus, the access was kind of like that option B, where it was impossible to get to his property. So we couldn't do that. And then we spoke with Mr. Evans. He was interested, and we proceeded from there to do the lease agreement with him. We did not get anyone else that mentioned they were interested in hosting a tower on their property.
Okay, thank you.
And in the event that we did have multiple, which we did, Lamb was the gentleman. He owned quite a bit of land, and the state of Minnesota was the other one, up by the hiking trail. And when we submit the candidates that we get to T-Mobile, their radio frequency engineer says this is where we need to be to fit within the network. So that's how we basically came to that property.
Thank you. So my next question would be to you. A leaseholder, not even the property owner, asking for a variance where it's coming into almost 50% of the recommended 1,000 feet, where it's not even the homeowners that are going to benefit from that, to put that burden on another property. Is there anything in that with the variance where it's a lease owner that's trying to get the variance versus the actual property owner?
May, Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
the property owner did consent to these applications being processed.
Okay.
So I do have written confirmation from them that they were okay with these applications as they were submitted. So it is often that there are agents representing applications. So from my perspective, that is not much more different. I would just say for the Board of Adjustments consideration that we have had wetlands be identified as practical difficulties on other variances in the past. So if that's not seen as a practical difficulty, just try to think through why that seems different in this case.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay. I realize I'm not the WACA consultant, nor am I the Board of Water and Soil Resources in this setting, but I do have some experience with Wetland Conservation Act, approximately 30 years. The sequencing process, in my understanding, you need to avoid wetland impacts where possible. Where not possible, you need to minimize those impacts. And once you have minimized those impacts, you need to mitigate for the losses, because Minnesota has a no net loss policy on wetlands. So nowhere in WACA does it say that you shall not impact a wetland. So they're looking, and Courtney and I were looking at the wetland delineation map a while ago. There are a lot of other locations on this property that WACA rules will allow you to site a tower and a road. It's gonna cost you money for mitigation, but it costs money. We
Yeah,
would
I
not
know.
have any iron mines in the state of Minnesota if it was all avoidance.
Yeah, just in conversation, right? The option B to me looked like an extreme.
Yeah, I think option B was an extreme of non-avoidance.
Yeah.
The current option might be the total
No,
minimization of
total.
impact. So there's somewhere in between.
Right.
And because of the way this was presented, there are some options. If I was the hired consultant on this project, I could give you a better opinion, but I'm not gonna go there. Okay, because I don't do that work anymore. But WACA will allow the applicant to sit down with the technical evaluation panel, the TEP, and work out some alternatives. And potentially, whether we will potentially get 1,000 feet for both properties, I don't know. I mean, it would be interesting to see that map we had with the red circle and the yellow circle. And as you move that around, is there a location that allows you to do this project without a variance for the property set, or the residence setbacks?
And to answer your question, Mr. Lee, the original location was based off of meeting that 1,000 foot. So it pretty much was in that location where we were. I mean, at the time, Mr. Kamak didn't have anything on his property, so it was more McKeever's, but we made sure that we were 1,000 feet back off.
So, yeah, you may have to go back to the drawing board and start moving those circles around and see what.
But we did have that meeting with the TEP, and that's what they had recommended, that we move it to one of these locations.
Yeah, you went exactly where I was going to ask for slide 48 back up again, please. that last sentence, first try and avoid, minimize where possible, was the line that I zeroed in on, and this seems to be a 100% avoidance solution. And we don't need to go to the original, but the, when I looked at the wetland delineation map, and I saw that there's a couple of spots that, you know, the earlier discussion where Mr. Nelson was talking about go around, and then we have to, or no, it was Ms. Maxwell, go around or, you know, go through at the minimal spot, that it looked like it could be more centrally located on the property. I still don't know that you'd achieve 1,000 feet.
I think we still ended up, there was one spot on the map, and I can hold it up. I think you're referring to, like over here.
Actually, on the higher scale map, more pulled out, it showed a couple of spots where you cut across a few.
A lot less wetlands, instead of
A lot
going right
less
through the
wetlands.
center of.
Yeah, we
And
still,
it would be
if
in
we
the
go
center of the
over
property.
here, we're still with McKeever's property, so we'd still.
I understand. The compromise is that the more centrally located,
This was the
Uh,
original option. Or no, that's option B originally.
helps, but it seems like we went from, the TEP probably goes with the, we're not touching the wetlands as their first assumption. And then, if someone's not in there advocating for a minimized approach to it, there's a
And that-
tendency to select that. And of course, in the context of what you knew at the time, not knowing about, the cabin going in, it was making some sense. And circumstances change, but again, that's a property owner exercising their property rights. And so, circumstances that we've run into. Any further
So-
discussion, additional
Yeah,
questions?
so I'm gonna ask the same question I asked at the planning commission. We did not change the CUP. If we don't change the variance, where do we stand?
If the variance is denied,
Yeah.
Because there's no
This
variance
new
right now.
variance is denied.
yeah, if this variance is denied, it would, it's the original CUP, that remains unchanged. They would essentially have, I believe, the ability to purchase the wetland credits to build the tower in that original location, presuming that there's no issues with building a tower in a wetland structurally.
And
If they
sorry.
chose a different location, though, that doesn't require a variance, would that come back up as a CUP, or,
With the CUP amendment?
yeah?
I think that would be a discussion with the Board of Commissioners if this was denied for the variance.
Yep.
The CUP amendment was noticed, like, in the actual, like, description of the CUP amendment, like, a change in location.
Mhm.
That location, might change. The county's always a little bit, you try to be as precise as you can be and consistent. I think we would have to maybe talk about that a little bit
As a matter
more.
of degree of how much of a change?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the need for the variance, is that only because of the distance from the other two properties? That's the only
Yeah, so
thing that
this-
we're looking at,
This
correct?
variance is because it's wethin 1,000 feet from the
Properties.
residential structures
Okay.
and
Neither
the
property.
wetlands. So the
neither-
wetlands are pushing them,
Yeah.
the tower, to stay out of wetlands, which, again, this board does review a lot of variances, and wetlands and bluffs, site-specific features are usually the things driving the need for variances. In this case, it's complex because the setbacks you're using are other people's items on other properties, which is different than when we're looking at a setback from a property line, or, it just seems a little different in that sense to
It
me.
is.
But when we're looking at variances, or when we're looking at what you said as wetlands being a, why can't I think of the word?
Practical difficulty?
Practical difficulty, thank you. The majority, actually, every time that I can think of is because there is no other spot. We're not able to suggest spots, but seeing other open spots, is it our problem for them to get access to those spots? Is that a practical difficulty we need to be looking at?
Not specifically, you're looking at the proposal before you and how it falls in line with the decision criteria.
Okay.
If you can find compromise in a way that's suitable with the applicants, sometimes that's an option, but it's not the board's job to find the like the alternative solution.
Okay, thank you for that
That's what I
clarification.
was saying, we have to deal with the application as we have in
As
front
it
of
is.
us. Because I kind of went down the same road in my first
Okay.
meeting.
Yeah, to me, I mean, I look at the practical difficulty, and I actually do take the good faith effort that you picked the 100% spot. But I think we are dealing with a more complex situation with neighbors and a big setback on a tower, which I think is appropriate. So for me, I think that we, as Chair Stillman said, that we have the two really extreme ends of the spectrum is not the best option, as I see it. You know?
Understood.
And I believe that there is a middle road, and that we can impact the wetlands, and there's a reason to, and to grant that
Minimally.
minimally,
Yep.
you know, and to go through the process.
Let me ask you this, based on the conversation, it sounds like you're inclined to deny the request. What I would suggest is maybe we table this, go back, and I'll talk to Vertical Bridge, look at the other potential locations, because I'm not sure that we're not going to be right back needing the variances again, because I still think we're going to be, between the two houses, we're still going to be this close on each of them. So by tabling it, it would give the county board the opportunity to, we could discuss that with them, because I believe, in talking with staff, that if we were to, at the Plan Commission, if we were to say, okay, we'll go to Plan B, option B, you guys could have approved it at that meeting. That's what I want to kind of leave open by tabling it, because if the county board says, you know, one thing, or we come up with a mutually agreeable solution, then we could readdress the variances, you know. Whereas if you deny it, it's a quasi judicial decision, and it's done. So that's kind of where I mean, based on everything that happened at the Plan Commission meeting and then this discussion, I think that might be the most palatable way to do it.
So are we tabling or are they
I was going to
withdrawing?
ask Ms. Maxwell, yes.
So just one thing real quick, now that the tabled word has gotten out there, keep in mind that once a motion to table happens, there's not supposed to be any more discussion. So nobody please make a motion immediately here so that we can get this fleshed out, pretty please. Procedurally speaking, we've got this application to be making a decision by the end of this month, I believe, Mike. And
could work
so,
on that.
well, I would need something in writing like now, like tonight, to extend that. Because there are times, case law with hearings, where the applicant will extend it verbally, and then something changes after the meeting, and then we are left in a bit of a quagmire. So I want us to be very cognizant of that this deadline, because these applications started so long ago, we have been on this process of continually extending that processing deadline continuously. So let's keep that in mind, pretty please, and know all that. And then the original question, so, you know, one thing I want to float by is that there are times where a variance would be approved that says, if there's something, like we're processing a variance, we're like, we think it's this distance, but it's snow conditions, and we can't tell down to the foot of how far we are from something. Sometimes the board grants variances that says the structure may be no closer than X feet from the thing. And then we as staff have the discretion to kind of be a little flexible with that person if there's a small change going down the road, to where it gives us some leverage to work with people
That's always a good
administratively.
thing.
And so, like, maybe there's something here that says, you know, the tower maybe, you know, maybe something within that 1,000 feet, but if the board is willing to accept a certain distance that feels appropriate, we could bring up that, the PowerPoint that has like the two radiuses. Would that be helpful for the group to look at? Is that a helpful visual for this conversation?
It's a helpful visual,
Yeah,
yes.
for sure.
All right, let's figure out where that is.
Can we ask the homeowners if they're ones that they would accept,
There we go.
There you go.
because
You know,
technically if they,
Based on, Mr. Chair, based on that, it almost seems like we're doing mitigation, we're doing sequencing on wetlands. Maybe we should also be doing sequencing on impacts to adjoining properties. How do we either avoid it or minimize it or mitigate it? You know, and asking the applicant to think about it in that
Yeah,
procedure.
I was,
Well, that was the original location.
well, the original location was 100% no impact, right?
As far as the separation,
From-
yes.
From buildings, right. And I think that in the interest of the county, as, you know, citizens representatives here, and the things that we're looking at, we're trying to say, is there a minimize solution in terms of what we're thinking? Because it's, you know, accept some sequencing with regard to the wetlands, minimizing that where we can, and minimizing impact to,
I
you
can't
know,
see it.
the 1,000 foot. I don't know that it's achievable, but to, you know, mitigate that to the degree possible, in the sense that we often have to look at how do we achieve some level of compromise as required.
Clarification,
Tax-
on
tax
this
parcel.
diagram, both that yellow circle and the red circle denote 1,000 feet.
Yep, and those, so that's Cook County MIS Department. This is not provided by the applicant.
Yeah.
So again, I just want to keep our wits about us that although we might want to be very helpful, it's again not our jobs to
Right,
provide the
correct,
solutions.
I
You
would
know,
also offer, these are conceptual.
Yep, these are very conceptual. It makes me a little, it would be nice if this could be paused to give the applicant time for them to provide you the technical information for you to review. But again, with that, we are in, you know, I don't know, Mike, if you're willing to put something in writing tonight to extend that
Not
deadline?
tonight. What I would suggest is I bring something back before the county board, because we're still under the same umbrella by then.
Right, but this is, the board, county board can't make a decision on a variance. So it's either a decision's made tonight by this board, or you extend the deadline tonight, because this board's not meeting again before the deadline is met.
I would like at least until tomorrow, so I could talk to Vertical Bridge. I don't want to make
Yeah.
it that type of a legal decision on their behalf.
And that's a tough place for you guys.
And the reason I like this diagram is it gives me some, not confidence, but makes me feel like there's maybe a possibility out there somewhere. Because it's not like we're saying we're asking you to do the impossible. And it's conceptual, and conceptually, there's maybe a solution out there that makes it work for the landowners, makes it work for the
I just,
applicant.
the reason I bring up conceptual is that I have been in these circumstances where the MIS has plotted things.
That's
And
not
I owned
correct.
land across the road, and my lakeshore was 75 feet from where it was supposed to be. So it's sort of like, I always just,
Yeah,
so
fortunately,
that
my
everybody
garage
looks at
wasn't
this
that
with that
far.
concept. Yes, Mr. Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to throw out there too, bear in mind that the Planning Commission, before you, made a recommendation to the board to deny the amendment to the conditional use permit, which puts it at ground zero where it is. And if that would be changed, that would have to,
They'd have to come back again.
Approved, yes.
Right.
So we'd have to refile, you're saying, and we would be able to refile?
well, that would have to be a discussion. The county board in the past has gone in a different direction than what a recommendation from the planning commission has. So
course, right.
it can be part of that discussion. It's rare that they do. It's easier and kind of more legally grounding if they don't, if they just go with the recommendation. But I just wanted to throw it to the board there that it sends a kind of a confusing message to the board of commissioners that, yeah, you want to deny the amendment, but we're going to think about the variance for somewhere else when you are recommending.
Well, I
it
mean,
tonight.
for tonight's decision, we can't think about a variance somewhere else. It's not in front of us.
Right.
We don't have a
Right,
package that
right.
says that.
Just not there.
Right.
But that can be applied for. I mean, another
Yes.
variance can, yeah.
Yes.
So I don't
And-
necessarily see an advantage to tabling it if there can be another variance application for a specific location.
Once it's
where we see all the facts
determined.
before us,
Let
right?
me ask you this. Is there a statute in your ordinance that says we can't reapply within X number of days?
I'm double checking the language.
Because
Just
Mhm.
give me a.
It's
good. Yeah,
12
that's good to
months,
know.
But unless it's substantially different.
100 feet this way or that way, is that substantially different? That's the,
We got to make the call.
yeah.
So what's the difference between the purple and the green? Are we talking like ponds and marsh, or like what's the wetlands?
On the wetland.
It's been a very long time since I looked at the wetlands delineation.
Yeah, it
Let me
doesn't
see if-
have
I can try to
label.
find it.
I mean, are we jumping over beaver ponds here, or is this like,
I mean, vegetation is,
It's
there's green
forested.
conifer in the
Yeah.
green, and there's not in the purple, just looking at the aerial.
so purple is more water?
This might be cedar,
Oh,
given this is.
yeah, because that looks super.
Without it.
But then,
Label
yeah, see right
delineation.
there, it's like
Yeah,
super.
yeah.
But then look at over here, this is like super too. But then what
It's
is
a good,
this?
good director.
Is that not a road right here?
Because I looked at
That's
this
right,
the
power
other day.
cut.
That might be
So why can't they do something there and go over? Because that's a power line?
I
That's
understand.
my guess.
I
Yeah,
knew
that's
this would be a
pretty
big,
easy.
based on
This is more
Hate not
all of
having
it.
my iPad.
Well, I'm glad that you guys have kind of went down this road before. Like, I knew that you guys had beat this tower thing to death last year, so.
I know, I'm a problem solver. I'm like all ready to,
Why don't you go
okay,
run
can we
for
get
it?
within
Give- make you feel like
750
you're
of each
really
of them
helpful.
and say that would be good? Because that splits the difference between the
Are
two?
we looking for something specific here, folks? Or just waiting?
You guys
on-
are talking about.
We're
number.
waiting,
Okay.
Yeah.
Remember, the mics are on.
yes. Nothing bad. Remembering we're not problem solvers, as much as we want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you need that. Right there. That's what I got off that one number. And I'm assuming that one is this one, because there's also another one. There's this one as well. So, because there's one right there,
Real
and there's
question,
one
is that
right
an
there.
updated one?
Got the book.
Do I still have this one?
Mhm.
Admittedly, I'm getting a pop-up with my Adobe that says access is denied to a file. I'm not gonna say it's the
Mhm.
file. I might be stuck in my emails. I'm gonna dig a little bit more, sorry. For the delay.
To discuss in the meantime, I mean, the other option that we were talking about is to basically give a distance as a condition.
Right,
correct? I mean, just to weigh our options here.
right.
I was just gonna ask that. Yeah, I couldn't find it anything else. Is approve it, saying to work, to get into 750 or work with
Mhm.
adjacent property owners. Can you have it open-ended like that?
I don't think so.
I think we'd need,
It has
we'd
to
want
be.
to
We'd
put a
have to
number
put
on
it.
it, yeah. Because otherwise, condition one right now, in accordance with the application materials, that's where they have it
That's what we have.
cited. If we change that, then we have to give them a minimum.
You give approvals, but then you can put conditions on the.
So 750, splitting it.
No, it's on the solution that he's presented. We can put conditions on that. We can't have him move it as a condition,
Oh,
okay? Because they've come to us and explained to us and to the neighbors, to their public, what they want.
okay.
And that's what they've asked for, specifically what they want, which is what we ask people to do. And so then we have to make a decision specifically on that, and we can put conditions on it,
On what they asked.
on what they asked. Right? But we don't move something, or, as Ms. Maxwell said, we can put in a condition that says no more than. So for example, when sometimes people come in and say, well, the house is going to be 23 feet. Well, the ordinance says 35. Why am I putting a restriction on them at 23 feet? So I'll change it and say move it up to no more than 28 feet. Because that way, if they make some changes or rock outcropping is there that they're not expecting and they end up pinned up a little higher than they thought they were going to be, the office has the flexibility to go, you got to go ahead. You're within the parameters. Ms. Maxwell. Ms.
We're-
Maxwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're quite certain that the provision that used to say there was no reapplication within a year has been removed from the ordinance. Neither of us are finding it.
Okay.
So this variance, if you have findings that would support a denial, the applicant could come forward with an updated application, a new variance. There would not be an ordinance reason why we couldn't reprocess something different.
Well, given that, I would make a motion to deny the variance request then.
And the findings, we need to go through the questions,
Yep.
talk about what exactly it is we're talking about before we.
We need to do that before a second.
Withdraw the motion there, so we can go through this part.
I'll withdraw so we can go through findings.
Yeah.
What page are we on for findings? Do we remember?
What page is that?
I got it on 19.
There we are.
We still got one more agenda.
I know, just realized that.
So review criteria. In evaluating practical difficulties is used in conjunction with the granting of a variance, the Board of Adjustment must consider the following criteria. The variance is consistent with the goals and policies of the Comprehensive Land Use Guide Plan and in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the Cook County zoning ordinance and other Cook County official controls. So, do we find it to be consistent or not consistent with that? I would take into consideration the 1,000-foot guidance and less than 1,000 feet requires a variance to get to 500 square feet. So the variance is then consistent with the goals and the policy of the comprehensive and in harmony with the general purpose and intent, because it is permissible to request a variance for less than 1,000 feet. And I'm being very specific for a reason.
Right.
Okay, does everybody agree with it, that it is consistent with that, the variance is consistent with that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Moving on then to number 2, the proposed use of the property is allowed in the land use district in which the property is located.
Yes.
Yes,
Yep.
that is correct, it's a FAR zone and this is a permitted use. The property owner is proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by the Cook County zoning ordinance. All right.
There, I mean, I would question the reasonableness in the tower ordinance, that it's a matter of degree, basically, that we're caught between the wetland and setbacks,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Right.
so it is a matter of reasonableness to me.
Because I would
Yep.
argue the reasonable manner is that they meet the 1,000-foot setback.
Right.
I think that's where you-
Or potentially,
But then there would
Some
never be a
compromise
request.
between the two.
We're evaluating a variance.
Correct.
And a variance is by definition not complying with the ordinance as written.
Correct.
So if we apply the 1,000-foot standard, then we said you can't get a variance unless you know, to the point where you don't need a variance. But then the purpose of variance is obviated, right? So we're here for approving variances, and they're requesting a variance to be within the 1,000 feet and not exceed the 500-foot limit that the law stipulates.
Okay. Okay, I can agree with that. Okay.
Okay. All right. The property owner has established that the practical difficulty is due to circumstances unique to the property and not created by the property owner, or in this case, the lease applicant.
True.
again, I think we're talking about the wetlands here.
Right.
That there exists a practical difficulty of wetlands, but it does not preclude the building of the tower in a way that minimizes the impact on those wetlands, to me.
But the wetlands are not created,
It's
but they're
not
not
like the
created by
wetlands
the
are,
property owner.
it's,
Right.
Right.
They're not the creation of the property owner, to be clear, but as we're examining the practical difficulty in question,
Correct, I would
Yeah.
agree that
that has been
they're
asserted,
not
yeah.
they're not a practical difficulty.
not to the degree that it's been taken in this solution.
Correct.
Right. You know, there are ways to mitigate this and be closer to the desired 1,000-foot separation, if not at the 1,000-foot.
Yeah.
Okay? So a no to any of these is a denial of the variance request.
Correct.
Mhm.
And since,
Um,
is the board,
Do we want to at least address the last two, just?
certainly,
Mhm.
approving the variance, maintain the essential character of the locality. Yes, as much as a cell tower can. I mean, they are what they are. It's, if we denied them because of the way the property looks today,
Yep.
we wouldn't be putting them in the county anywhere.
Correct.
The property owners established the practical difficulty involves more than economic considerations alone. I think that we have done that as well.
Yep.
So items 4, the practical difficulty due to circumstances unique to the property and not created by the property owner. We think that the property, the unique property circumstances are a reality, but they've been overly compensated for, in the sense that there are other solutions which minimize the impact and approach the objective to a greater degree. So does anybody disagree with that item 4 has not been met, given the analysis we've done this evening? Okay, so do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to deny the variance with those findings of fact.
Based on item 4? Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None heard. The variance is not approved.
Is that 5-0? To
Yes.
deny?
Yes.
Is it unanimous? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. You handled this very well. Appreciate it.
Okay,
Have a good evening.
so we're not done yet.
No, we're not.
I
Nope,
see
we got
we
one
have
more.
item D,
Speaking of handling it very well.
taking up applicant Dan Anthony Nelson, the Leo Estates late plat.
Poor guy's been back there for a long time.
Sorry, Mr. Nelson, we'll get you started here. All right,
Oh, that's,
ready?
yes.
All right. Thank you,
Staff,
Mr. Chair.
please.
This is
Yes.
a variance request for relief from the Cook County Bluff setback standards to allow primary dwelling, a 28 by 36 single-story cabin, to be placed 20 feet from the top of the bluff, where a minimum of 30 feet is required on a substandard legal lot of record located at Lot 4, Block 1 of Leo Lake Estates. The applicant's property includes 1
That's my
acre
second
with
screen.
approximately 188 feet of Leo Lake shoreline and 145 feet wide at the building setback line. The parcel is primarily contained within the Lakeshore Residential Zone District with a small portion in FAR3 Zone District. Newly created lots must be 1 acre and 150 feet wide at the structure setback. Leo Lake is classified as a recreational development lake. The applicant, Dan Nelson, is requesting relief from the bluff setback requirements to allow a 10-foot encroachment into the top of bluff setback on his property on Leo Lake, to allow the placement of a 28 by 36 single-story cabin. The parcel is currently undeveloped, however, the parcel shape is irregular and due to narrower width is non-conforming. I included the bluff setback standards in the ordinance. The parcel is identified as Lot 4 within the Leo Lake Estates Plat. There we go. Which was recorded in 1977. Lot 4 is about 145 feet wide at the 100-foot building setback line from the lake. The parcel is currently undeveloped, however, there is a power line that crosses the parcel, and the property is well vegetated with a mature forest that includes impressive cedar trees of a variety of ages. The property owner has taken proactive steps to manage the forest to reduce wildfire risk with balsam removal efforts. Cook County Recorder's Office has 1 variance recorded within this plat. Lot 3 has granted a shoreline setback of 50 feet to build a cabin due to topography in 1986. Within this plat, few permits are on record indicating most likely that these cabins are pre-existing legal nonconformities. Here's some aerial photos with site conditions. The grade, I don't think shows up very well, but there's shaded gray, and that's supposed to indicate the bluffs. So I apologize if that shows up better on the paper. So this is Leo Lake Estates Plat, and his property is Lot 3.
Lot 4.
Lot 4, sorry. As you look at the site plan here, this is an excerpt from the application. This is kind of indicating that 20-foot setback from the bluff. This is at a location where the power line is drawn on that site sketch a little bit to the, I guess, south-ish. And then on the right-hand side of the screen is where the mound, the septic mound, is proposed to be between the structure and the property line. So this structure is trying to be located with the lake setback, the bluff setback, space for the septic mound also meeting the lake setback, and then the power line is how this location was selected. For site considerations, as I indicated, that septic location is one component driving the need to be within the setback from the bluff. I have some information there from the Cook County Environmental Health Officer, Jesse Johnson. The slope, the property has a bluff feature on the south and east sides of the parcel. The property owner has adjusted site designs and the proposed variance to minimize the amount of variance relief being requested, and is proposing to keep development outside of the bluff impact zone. As a reminder, the bluff impact zone is that first 20 feet from the top of the bluff. So this is requesting to be placed at that 20-foot setback line. Parcels meeting impervious surface coverage. Wetlands are not an issue driving the need for the variance, and the shoreline has a very healthy, well-vegetated tree forest cover. For public noticing, the application was publicly noticed in the Cook County News Herald on January 23rd, 2026. 15 letters of notification were sent to adjacent property owners as well as county departments and the DNR hydrologist. 2 written comments were received from adjoining property owners during written comment period and an email from the DNR. Alan and Jennifer Lipke of lots 1 and 2 of Leo Lake Estates Plat support the variance request, recognize the lots were created in the 70s and regulation changes since lot creation, identify the power line and topography characteristics, and cite other variances that have been granted in the vicinity. Dave and Bart Tuttle of 15 Crooked Pine Trail support the variance request, and the DNR area hydrologist provided the following comments, stating, I do not find the request to be controversial or unreasonable. I recommend that if approved, the landowner increase vegetative planning within the bluff impact zone, replace any vegetation that was disturbed or removed during construction, maintain a buffer area in the bluff impact zone, no additional structures be permitted within the bluff setback area or ordinary high water level setback area, and gutters be placed on structure to redirect precipitation or flow away from the lake. I have provided some draft findings relative to the variance criteria. For the practical difficulty element, I believe that the lot creation date and configuration relative to being created prior to zoning and state bluff regulations is a component for consideration, as well as the narrowing lot width. And also the reasonableness element in particular, I feel this cabin is quite reasonably situated in size and scope relative to the property and the amount of variance being requested. For staff recommendation for considerations, the applicant did meet with land services staff in the fall of 2025 to review the layout and options of the property. Careful attention was given to the placement of the septic system and cabin in relation to setback requirements for the lake and property lines and existing site features, the parcel shape, power line, and topography. Following the consultation, the applicant revised the plans to reduce the encroachment into the bluff setback and successfully avoided any intrusion into the bluff impact zone consistent with land services staff recommendations. The site layout has been adjusted to minimize the variance requested, and the proposed structural location now meets the 20-foot bluff impact zone setback. Considering the lot shape, topography, and power line placement, the proposed project and variance requests appear reasonable with practical difficulties present, and I have provided a few draft conditions to be considered. And that's all I have.
Is Mr. Nelson here?
I'm very patient.
Please state your name and your address when you get situated.
Dan Nelson, 3030 Sumter Avenue North, apartment 209 in Crystal, Minnesota, 55427.
Thank you. So we see a pretty well thought out solution here. Is there anything you'd like to add to what Ms. Maxwell had to provide?
No, I think that's, well, my mound guy said that's probably the only place to put a mound to take into consideration for that. He did mention that. And otherwise, yeah, it's a lot of back and forth to try to fit it in there, so I can't really envision any other way to do it other than this.
Okay, thank you. Opening to public comment. Any comment from the public? Okay, not hearing anything. Public comment is closed. Ward, would you like to discuss? I mean, from my perspective, I see someone who sat down with land use offices and figured this out in pretty great
Yep.
detail. I think the findings are well explained from the staff in terms of what they went through to arrive at the solution. Obviously, the bluffs in this space are driving this and complying with the lake setback as well. So, any further discussion, comments?
Nope, I would make a motion to approve it
Okay, in keeping with,
with the staff's
Findings.
considerations,
okay,
The conditions?
conditions.
look at the conditions a second.
One of these days, I'll get those words right.
I'll second that motion, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so I have a motion on the table for approval, accepting of staff's findings and conditions. Okay? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed? Motion, variance approved.
I would mention Neva is great to work with.
Yes, she is.
We've noticed, we're worried about her fleeting up, it's getting promoted.
Well, thanks for waiting, Dan.
Yep, thank you.
I'll send you a letter tomorrow.
We have a motion to adjourn.
I will motion to adjourn.
I will second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.
That was a tough one.
Good part is
Oh,
boots
are
dried
mics
out
off yet?
during this process.
I guess so. Don't be that hunk of junk.
Yeah, that was really tough.
Text right now.